Hello. Sorry about that. I've been drawing in quite a bit here. Um, Actually, just wanted to say that I'm gonna end here. Cause, well, you can tell it's very terrible. I do want to go over some of the drawings that I did here, some of the sketches. Um, or at least one like this here, number 11. Oh, before we go into all of that, hello. Hope you had a great Tuesday thus far. Sorry about that. I didn't really feel like talking a whole lot when I started the stream, so I just started drawing. Now I figured out a way to do this slideshow thing. I just used Inference View. This is like an open source image viewer, basically. And it has a slideshow feature where you can create rudimentary slideshows. You can set automatic timers to change to the next image, and it's made in such a way that it overlays on top of all of your windows, and you can basically play it as like a splash art window, like from games like League of Legends, or I believe even CSGO has a splash art when it starts up. Or Arma 3, I believe. Don't take me too serious here. But what I mean is this like borderless window, essentially, where you only see the art of whatever it is, right? Yes, for League of Legends, it would be something like this, I would say, right? At least if I remember correctly. Right, something like this when you start a game. You get this overlay thing. I think I haven't played in a while. Not intending to. Anyway, it kind of looks like this, where it's not the usual window that you see from File Explorer, where you have this kind of stuff going on, right? Right. It's not that kind of window. Anyway, point is, I got frustrated with the fact that it takes me 2 hours to do 20 drawings of what is supposed to be a 60 what's supposed to be 61-minute gesture drawings. But I don't know why it takes me so long. I really don't know. I really don't. No clue. Either way, I'll probably have to go in and draw very small in here so I don't have to resize much of anything. Also, I kind of want to develop a method for myself to use in this like high-speed drawing practice, I guess. As compared to everything else, this is pretty fast, everything else I've been doing. So yes, but let me just lay out why I'm doing this in the first place, or why what I think this is helpful with, or helping me with personally. Since it's so fast, and just write that down. Since they, as in gestures, are only a minute, since they are only a minute, I'm forced to reduce the complexity of the pose and forms Since there are only a minute, I'm forced to reduce the complexity of the pose and forms drastically. What I mean is essentially this. While I am, how should I say this? While I'm forgetting a few important things here, like the line of action a lot of people talk about. I don't know if how necessary it is. I can't tell you right now. This might be, even though what I'm doing looks really, really ugly if you look at it, and I'm not doing anything particularly innovative or amazing, I don't think. Perhaps even that might be too difficult when you're starting out. I don't know. I don't quite remember how I felt when I first did this kind of stuff, these gestures. But what I want to say is this: reducing the pose and the forms to their bare bone minimum very quickly, is essentially just making it convey the movement or the energy in the pose very quickly, like this, for example. Although these two, number 6 and number 7 here, are very similar, and to be fair and honest, 6 and 7, wait, I just noticed. Number 6 and number 7 both kind of like seem as though they are sitting poses, right? Which is true for number 6. This is actually supposed to be a sitting pose, going something like, this. Although I do have to say, when I'm standing, I think I draw a lot freer, or maybe it's just the height of the desk currently, right this moment. Anyway, this is actually supposed to be a sitting pose. I've drawn it before, or rather yesterday, as you can see right here. It's supposed to be this form, and as you can see with number 7, it's actually supposed to be a standing pose, which you can't really see or know with just the information I managed to put on paper. I would have liked to at least do something like this on top, but I'm really not good at this, so I didn't. But you can tell the difference in energy. Maybe that's a bit presumptuous or stupid to say, because they are different in basically the entire structure anyway. It's not so much that I'm good at capturing energy of the poses. How do I say this? I mean, honestly, it's pretty self-explanatory. The whole breaking down the form to the most bare minimum of information chunks that you can use personally to represent a pose or form in this case. So this is very much honestly, this kind of practice to me seems like the best analogy I have for this is like the kiln. Is that the word? Maybe the kiln in a blacksmith shop. So imagine you're a blacksmith, right? You can work metal in a lot of ways, many, many different ways actually, without using heat, right? But if you want to make particularly intricate works of metal or tools, or you want to use or create metals rather, not just use pre-existing ones to work with, you need heat, you need a kiln, you need a fire pit in a way, you need something that quite literally cleanses the material in a way from its what's the word? Can't quite put my finger on it. Impurities is what I wanted to say. Right. In many ways, that's quite also quite literally what you're doing here. Since these poses are just 1 minute, and you should most importantly care about not going over this time limit, which I did in a few drawings, I believe. Yes, this one here, which I timed because I just wanted to see how I would draw the pose. And in a few others, one particularly, but I can't quite find it right now. I mean, it's not that important, but point is, this whole practice kind of acts like the kiln, like the process of putting the metal, right, or heating up the metal to then pound out its impurities or melt it down into its base components. You're essentially removing everything that isn't the metal, right? And if you take this analogy and use it for this gesture practice, it's kind of like, actually, it first of all, it fits quite well. But what I meant to say is that this is also such a purifying process in a way, since you have so little time. Your decisions mostly, what's the word? Let's just say hover around, or you basically have to focus on very few things, most of them directly concerning with what is needed in a most basic way to represent the forms, the energy, the flow in a way, the gesture, everything that you see in the image, you immediately have to break down to its core components that make up most of what it is that you're seeing. So you are forcing yourself, let me actually write that down. You're forcing yourself to forces you to rip the details away from the forms, I guess, or from the image. So yes, and that kind of works. I can kind of do it, but like specifically with this drawing with number 15 here, which is a dude. Let me just show you. It's a guy in a suit and a mantle, I think. Suit and mantle, and he's walking down the street. And I'm kind of getting confused every single time I'm drawing it. I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? How do I do this? Let me just show you for the sake of argument. There we go. It's this guy. So this is the image to number 17. I'm trying to obviously draw the guy in the middle here, the clear subject of the photograph. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm confused because there's so much detail that I'm kind of overwhelmed, that I take it as a kind of, I confuse it as a part of the necessary building blocks of this pose, of the gesture, of the energy, the flow, whatever you want to call it, you know, of the entirety of the image. If you think of it in a perspective of someone trying to represent it, you know, if you're trying to represent the subject matter, well, it's an old gentleman, right? Dressed very well in suits, walking down the street, right? So that's the perspective of the photograph, perhaps, you know. But if you're trying to draw it in a minute, you have to basically rip the entire figure out of the clothing and just represent that. But then I'm constantly getting confused as to, like, well, why? Sorry, I'm confusing some of the details as a necessary part of representing yeah, its most basic shapes, I guess. I don't know. Kind of losing my mind here trying to explain this. What I'm essentially getting confused about is this here. If you look at number 14, right? There's that's a woman actually with a gun, doing this like kind of ducked pose, or this kneeling pose, crouching pose is what I wanted to say, where she's aiming the gun, right? So that's this one here. And for obvious reasons, the gun is a necessary, quote, detail. It's a prop that's necessary to describe the form, or rather, the image itself. Not so much the human form. Anyway, I'm confusing the gun in this image, that is, I think, necessary to be drawn, with the suits here, you know, with the clothing of this guy in number 15. And I get thrown off, and then the minute is over and I'm confused. Anyway, it's difficult. I'm trying to figure out a way to make this go more smoothly, and perhaps tomorrow I'll be able to actually do 60 poses in 60 minutes. We'll see. I hope the slideshow works. Maybe I will save a new exe file, because you can save the slideshow as an exe file through Inference View, which kind of seems weird, honestly, but it's okay. It's fine. Either way, we'll see if I can draw more than 25 poses here tomorrow. What I'm trying to figure out still, while doing all of this, is not drawing in this. How should I say this? This beginner type of like way. I don't know. This chicken scratch, overly how to say it, indecisive way, I guess you could say. What I mean by this is that I imagine these things, these arms here, for example, as more of like a tube, even when the tube might not be the best form to use here. Say, for example, for the elbow, you know, I'd be better off if I did something like this, I guess, instead of bending this downwards. And it's like a side effect of this wrong thought process I'm trying to get rid of, essentially. And I'm kind of managing it through imagining or trying to remember how Kay draws his sketches. And so I'm kind of getting by in some ways. This I liked a lot. I really hated the thigh area, though, the left thigh here. I don't know, perspective sometimes throws me off with these, with the lower leg basically and the foot, because I don't know enough about those two specific parts. I think sometimes I think that, yeah, most of the time. Anyway, so yes, anything else I wanted to talk about? I mean, I like that I made some comments here. Takes a bit longer, obviously, then. So while I did this, I'm still kind of debating, or was still kind of debating, if just going through the motion of doing this 60 times in an hour, right? Drawing these poses. And I'd probably have to at some point at least get, let's say, 5 slideshows full of images, which would amount to around 300 images, right? I kind of think I would need 300 images to at least make myself forget some of them for long enough to actually be able to repeat this every day for a whole hour, right? And I'm kind of debating whether that's as useful as it's claimed to be. I see the point of doing these 1-minute poses, and I also understand the how to say this, the learning aspect. It's not exactly what I want to say, but yes, the learning aspect, the learning optimization kind of thing that's going on here, where you do something repeatedly, look at what you've created earlier, and then slightly start adjusting how you do things to do them better over time, with repetition. So while the example didn't quite work out as well as I would have liked to, the point is, you start off with this really ugly circle, and at the end, you'll produce something that's kind of like perfect, This type of repetitive learning here, I also understand why you would want to do that. And I kind of think, or I kind of feel like I'm reaping some benefits from this. I'm just not sure if only doing this for 1 minute actually helps, or rather if I should go back in after, say, a session of 25 or whatever of these drawings and correct what is wrong, what doesn't work, So I'm kind of thinking like maybe I should do half of the initial 60, but then I go over all of them for another minute to try and, see if the center of balance is correct, What do I mean by this? Center of gravity, sorry. So like this guy, for example, right? Center of gravity is obviously here, which makes this leg kind of off center. It would have to move, I would think, a little bit more to the left here to properly support the person. If actually I'm kind of might have to retract that, since this guy is sitting on a chair and the legs don't so much are needed as a support and just could be stretched this way for relaxation purposes. It's more important for standing poses or sitting poses. This one here, for example. Center of gravity, very clearly behind the head here. These legs, the way I've drawn them, they would never be able to support this, which is why this looks weird. So I'm kind of debating if I should go over these images and try and fix them in this way, or draw in at least the center of gravity lines to visualize for myself where I made some mistakes, what I could improve upon, make some notes, instead of just going in, sitting down for an hour and drawing all of these poses, And I'm also kind of thinking whether I shouldn't just extend the time. Instead of doing 1-minute poses, perhaps doing 3-minute poses, but breaking them down. So instead of saying, okay, do the entire pose in 3 minutes, I would do something like, okay, initial sketch, very much like the original 1-minute gesture poses here, or gesture drawings. I would go in and try to capture the majority of the important things, or all of them, all of the important aspects of the figure in the first minute. And then I'll go in and see, how I could improve upon this initial drawing, give some more details, perhaps even go so far as do some expressions, some very rudimentary expressions. So a lot of stuff is floating in my head here that's making me kind of doubt or question the practice here, which I think is not really helpful while you're doing it. So yes, I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight of what I'm thinking about when I'm doing all of this stuff. And so I'm going to think about that after stream ends, figure out what I want to do. It's probably going to end up just being 31-minute poses and then correcting them, to the point, or I think I'll do that as often as I need it, up until the point where I can just do 30-minute or 31-minute gestures pretty much flawlessly. Not really perfectly or anything, but like without the major flaws of being off center like this, having most of the body not drawn, not being certain if this is a standing pose or like a sitting pose, since you didn't draw the entire body. I want to capture the subject for obvious reasons. That's something I want to focus on. Actually, let me write that down so I don't capture the entire subject within the minute. Very ugly written, but it's whatever. So what was I saying? Yes, I'll probably do this. Let me get a new page here. 30-minute. So like 31-minute gesture, and then into (31-minute) corrections, or correcting of previous gesture. So for all of the images, that I've tried to draw. Yeah, so the first things first though, I have to focus, obviously, on capturing the form. Then I have to focus on the art style. So I've written it pretty much down here because I noticed all of this stuff while I was doing this. So maybe you want to also just write down your thoughts of these or about these drawings when you're done with them. Don't count on remembering all of this stuff. Don't do it. Just write it down. Just write down the pet peeves you have or the issues you have with pet peeves. Is that right? Anyway, just write down the issues you have with your drawing while you're doing it or after having done it. Immediately after having done it, while you're still in the phase of processing what you've just created, try to be specific, though of course I didn't really do this myself, but I think it's understandable for these two, for drawing 6 and drawing 7. So I mean, truly, what the fuck is this? There's a lot of stuff missing here. So yes, I do like the head though. I like the head. I like how I did this shorthand for where the torso and the hips meet. Yes, I don't think I have much more to say, though I think I've been yapping for 30 minutes anyway. All right, so sorry about this. I'm gonna end it here now after having talked about my thoughts while doing all of this. I'm pretty certain that I'm gonna do this 30-30 thing, so half and half drawing, half correction, and I'll just try and focus on capturing the most important forms and the gesture, like the energy, really. So might have to focus more on getting the line of action in there. Maybe not. We'll see. Fairly certain I'll do that, and I'll do my best not to go over the minute. So when I'm done. Next image, immediately. So yes. Anyway, I hope you learned something. I hope you also consider doing this, or you are already doing this kind of gesture study, the figure drawing. Again, if you need any more concrete advice from someone who's actually more knowledgeable than me about life drawing, I can only tell you to check out. Let me see what his name was. Because I'm not too certain about it myself. Let me just go here, go in history. See if I can find it. All right, so Love Life Drawing. I haven't watched a lot of his videos, but those that I did seemed very informative and really actually geared towards teaching you something important, breaking down something that you might not be understanding at this point in time. So again, if you need any advice, just check out at Love Life Drawing on YouTube. Specifically, for advice on, as the name would suggest, life drawing, mostly figure-oriented life drawings. because some people mean with life drawings, you know, actually sitting there in three-dimensional space. You as a human being, right? You sit in a room where you observe a subject that isn't just on your screen, right? Some people also mean that act, you know, of taking in the 3D form through your own eyes and converting it into a two-dimensional drawing, or yes, two-dimensional drawing, really. So again, specifically on advice for figure drawings, go to this guy, check out his videos, especially check out the first 7 skills you need to learn. Figure drawing roadmap part 1. I haven't watched any other videos, but just that alone makes me want to acknowledge his efforts and his, you know, yes, check him out. I gotta go now. Again, hope you learned something. Hope you had fun. I still did. Surprisingly, this keeps me engaged. These like 61-minute drawings here, you know, they keep me engaged because I have something to do. I don't know. It's kind of weird when I don't have to choose the reference before I start drawing, because I already did that, right? I can get my mind freer than usual. And also, when I'm standing, I'm drawing a lot more freely. So I'll have to figure out a way to either stand more often while drawing or get my desk set up properly while I'm sitting to get a similar effect. We'll see. But it really kind of felt like my hands were flying across the tablet, which confused me while I was starting this drawing, because it felt so easy to do, so light and just loose, you know, which confused me and in a way shocked me, you could say. So I didn't quite finish the drawing, despite it being just I think a girl with a book running in a direction somewhere, you know, which I think you can make most of this out. You wouldn't know this is a girl, I guess. It could just be a monk in a way. You know, who knows? You know, long skirts aren't exclusive to women. I mean, more so nowadays, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'm talking away my lifetime. I have to go take a massive shit. Yes. And relax a bit. Watch a little bit of movies or something. We'll see. Might just go to bed, honestly. Anyway, take care of yourselves, guys. Try to have fun. I think that's the most important part when doing something as massive as trying to learn how to draw. You know, go after what is your interest, but you have to try and push yourself. Otherwise, you'll end up in a rut where you just do the same things over and over again, and you basically just end up learning to be more accurate in drawing the very few things that you're comfortable with drawing, right? Instead of trying new approaches, new ways of thinking that you can apply to your drawings, you know, that you can hold on to while you're drawing, whatever. Yes, it's very complex. Don't lose hope. It's doable, very much so. And I think in the case of drawing, of art in general, perhaps not in general, but specifically drawing, painting, perhaps making music, I guess you could consider that part of art, of the arts, I guess. Yes. The creative side of things that isn't just vile, that isn't just there to shock people for shocks for the sake of being shocked, you know. It's hard to say, but basically all of the art that is made not for the purposes of showing you can disrespect something, someone, a concept, a principle, or whatever, but rather to make a person voluntarily think about themselves and the world around them, which I think is the differentiating, let's say, principle between actually good art and terrible dog shit, you know, frankly. If you can get someone else to be introspective about themselves, I think that kind of art, regardless of technical ability, regardless of how accurate the lines are or how well chosen the colors, I think if you can do this on a large enough scale, because it's, the question obviously comes up, well, at what point is it this proper version of art, since just one person liking it could be enough? It's kind of, weird to give this like a clear outline. But I think in general, I'm pretty much hitting the nail on the head here with what I think is actual art and not. But, human condition. It's not exactly see-through, not exactly transparent. And we don't know everything. But anyway, I'm talking out of my ass at this point. So anyway, I don't know why I brought all of this up. Just try not to discourage yourself. Critique is fine, Try to have fun while critiquing yourself. Do stupid little comments like "the fuck is this?" or I don't know. Whatever you find funny, Draw some smileys, give yourself grades, or whatever it is that you can work with as a descriptor to tell yourself this was good, this was what I did right, this was what I did wrong. I think it's necessary to do this kind of correction stuff, to note this stuff down and then fix it afterwards. I think is also important. Yes, anyway, I'm gonna get rid of this stuff here. Hey, just keep on talking. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm gonna go now. Have a very nice rest of your day. Very nice rest of your day. I wonder if that's like an Irish accent. Probably not. My voice is just too weird, too very weird to make the accent work. Yes. Well, okay. I've been hitting my desk over and over because I'm just trying to remind myself not to talk so much. This is the last time. So, take care of yourselves. Have fun while drawing. Share your drawings with other people if you can. Preferably someone that's at least a little bit knowledgeable or easy to talk to, that you can explain these things. But even if it's someone unlearned or unknowledgeable, quote unquote, you might still gain something from showing your pieces to them. So don't be afraid. Don't consider yourself, actually just practice some humility, I guess. This is such a massive skill to learn, or such a complex skill to learn. I think without some measure of humility, not sure if you're going to make it. Take it easy. Take care of yourselves. Again, third time now, I think. I'll probably see you next time.